Hi, this is Eddie Hearn, and you're watching Lights Out.
This is Faisal Khan for Lights Out in association with Shamrock Boxing, and this is podcast 14 of the Lights Out Boxing podcast. Yep, Liverpool are league champions. I wish I could talk about that all day, but we've got some serious matters in boxing to discuss. Before we get started, just introduce the team today. Montel Devante Lowe, a.k.a. Monts. Mohsin Gulshir, a.k.a. Ron, and the guy with the great Liverpool top on, my older brother, Asif Khan. Lads, how's it going?
Not too bad, mate.
Yeah. Life's quite good these days, isn't it, Asif? It's not every day you become a Premier League champion.
Great life. Loving it.
Before we get into the podcast, I just want to remind the viewers out there, if they haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow us on all the social media platforms and give these guys a follow on social media as well. And Ron, you've got a bit of a fundraiser going on, so the floor's all yours. Let us know how we can help with your fundraiser, and we'll try do our best in getting it out there.
Yeah, for this whole month, I have kind of put myself to run. Initially, I said 200 kilometers for the NHS, but as the challenge has gone on, I've kind of got a lot more confident now. So I've just, instead I've almost completed 300 kilometers over the past 30 days. So the charity, obviously, Faisal's going to provide you the link below. Donate wherever you can. All the proceeds go towards the NHS. We know what a fabulous job that they've been doing during such uncertain times with this coronavirus. It's just our appreciation and just to raise awareness for them as well. So please, it's been a fantastic call. There's a group of us. It's called the Running Fit Club. There's members from all around Luton and other surrounding areas, some even international as well, who also have joined in. I want to mention one name in particular. He's a gentleman called Mudj Bathor, who's running 500 kilometers this month. So, if you thought my one was quite high, that's ridiculous. So,
we will be
well done, lads. Well done.
Brilliant.
Good effort.
We'll be sharing the link in the description for that. Please, guys, whatever you can, just donate. It's going towards a great cause. Well done to you, Ron. And Montel, providing a bit of competition for us in the YouTube business. We understand that there's a new football platform called Talking Tactics. Talk to us about it, Mons, and how can we help to sort of get it out there for the fans?
Yeah, I don't think it's competition for us. But
no, I'm only
just a football podcast. We've just started through Instagram at the moment. We'll be moving on to YouTube and getting a lot of content through YouTube where we kind of video and our reactions to specific matches and so forth. So yeah, we're just trying to build some content at the moment. So just get following Talking Tactics _football on the Instagram, and you'll see what's coming in store in the future.
We'll be putting the link to your Instagram page in our description, as well as Ron's fundraising thing that he's doing as well. But well done, lads. It's good to see you, Ron, what you're doing. And Mons, we're really looking forward to checking out Talking Football Tactics. As if we've not got much to say other than we're Premier League champions. Anyway, as we always do now, the quick fire question. The first week, I believe it was, I think it was something to do with favourite boxers. Last week, it was, what was it last week for last week's podcast? It was, what would we change about the current boxing scene? Today's quick fire question for podcast number 14 is, in boxing right now, what is the one fight you would make if you was a promoter?
So, if I was a promoter, I had to have a long, hard think about this one. Obviously, everyone knows my stance on Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, but I thought, you know what, let me just give something different today. But the fight I'd like to see is Vasily Lomachenko versus Gervonta Davis. I feel like that would be a barnstorm. I feel like those two styles are perfect for each other. So, yeah, I think that would be a proper top fight to make.
Yeah, I think that's a great fight. Lads, what fight would you make in boxing right now if you guys were a promoter?
I'm going to probably stay domestic. And I'm a big, massive Chris Eubank Jr. fan. He's my favourite fighter, just the way he is. I would go with him and a rematch with Billy Joe Saunders, because I think Billy Joe Saunders is probably the most overhyped fighter in British boxing at the moment.
Oh,
Oh
And
no!
I love the rivalry between the pair. When they first fought, the press conferences were fun. The fight itself was actually a good fight, and I just think they've come on levels now. So I think that would be a good fight to make.
I actually think there will be a rematch. I think Eddie Hearn will make that fight because I don't see Billy Joe Saunders getting the Canelo, the Callum Smith fight anytime soon. But I actually do think there's a high possibility of that fight happening. Ron, Gervonta Davis, Lomachenko, Saunders, Eubank rematch. What fight would you make?
I mean, I like the what Montel said about the lightweight division. That's quite an exciting division. I mean, if you didn't make that Lomachenko versus Gervonta Davis, you got Devin Haney. You could make Teofimo Lopez. So you got a host of names there. But I'll have to go to the welterweight division, and I'd like to say have a shootout between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. And let's just get the unified, who's the number one of that division.
Yeah, PBC's finest versus top ranks finest. Great fight. I'd like to see it. Difficult fight to make because obviously both with rival promotions. But yeah, the fight I would have to go is down at featherweight is Josh Warrington versus Shakur Stevenson. There's a lot of hype surrounding Shakur Stevenson. He's a great fighter. I've always said Warrington's an absolute machine, and I think it's a brilliant fight for them both. Hopefully, Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum can come together and make that fight happen. But yeah, so those are the 4 fights we'd make in boxing right now. Let's move on to the first topic of this podcast. Big baby Jarrell Miller. Oops, he did it again. Yeah, he's failed
Game
another.
over.
Yeah, well, he's failed another drugs test. As if you say game over, is there no way back for Jarrell Miller now?
Who's going to promote
Seriously,
him?
what the fuck? That's the first thing when you broke that news to me, I thought you're kidding me. Seriously, surely he learnt his lesson from that, fight that got called off. After, the irony was he called Anthony Joshua a drug cheat, and it was him all along that was using illegal substances, performance-enhancing substances. And he got away with it. He got a touch. I mean, I can't remember how long the ban was. It wasn't
6
that,
months.
I mean, it was a touch, considering it could be years, 2 years, lifetime. But
you say game over, but if you look at the first 3 failed drug tests, and let's rewind back a bit. 2014, when he was a kickboxer, he also failed a drug test then. Why has boxing allowed him to even sort of climb back into the sport, make a small comeback, let him be on the verge of a fight, and only to find out that he's failed another drugs test? I mean, the failed drug test, the 3 failed drugs tests with the fight before Anthony Joshua, surely that's enough to warrant a lifetime ban.
Do you know what I think is? I think the main thing is with drug cheats and the punishments. There's got to be a point now where lifetime bans come into play, and because there isn't, there's a case that you can't just start banning people when you've been given punishment of a certain level. It's got to be a level playing field. Yeah, so I think that's why he's got away with it once. You said about his kickboxing career, but in boxing once, this second time now, there's absolute no way back for him. No promoter is going to want to touch him. And I think I'm not a steroid expert or anything, but you can probably tell he's probably, been on it during the lockdown, thought he'd be out of the system by the time he's gone into camp, and he's obviously failed the drug test. But there's no way back for him now. No promoter should go anywhere near him, because it's just, it's a brutal sport as it is. It's a brutal sport. And if people are like taking enhancing performance stuff to get that edge, it's not right, and there has to be a starting point. Someone has to now get a lifetime ban for other fighters to think, no, I'm not going to do that, because at the moment, like you said, 6 months is nothing. It's a rest between 2 fights. So
yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's quite. I mean, Faisal, you had an interview with Dimitri Salita, who promotes him, and he spoke very highly of his comeback, and I was excited because I thought he's the next American heavyweight boxing is on the decline at the moment, with Deontay Wilder obviously relinquishing his WBC title to Tyson Fury. He was a loudmouth, you're brash American. I thought, yeah, he'll bring some drama and excitement into the division. He was a heavy hitter, but he's kind of blown it now for the Americans. I mean, so not only it is a shame, but for American boxing, I think it was a massive shame. Not only for boxing as well, but
Montel, how badly does this damage the people that gave him that second chance? Because, like I said, it wasn't just the first time round before the Anthony Joshua fight. It wasn't just one. It was 3 failed drug tests. I mean, surely then that's when they should have come together and be like, listen, this is 3 failed tests. Surely there's got to be a lifetime ban the first time round before the AJ fight.
Definitely, because the people around him now, it ruins their credibility, because we're going to be looking at them thinking, well, were you not involved with this? Would you be a bit more stricter with kind of like what you give him in terms of training and whatnot? But kind of like touching on what Asif said, I think it's hard because you do deserve a second chance. I'm one for giving second chances to some things, but at the same time, when does the book stop? Because do we need someone to get killed in the ring for there to be given out lifetime bans? What needs to happen? Because fighters are going to continue to do it over and over again, and I still think there are a lot of fighters that are using performance enhancing drugs, but are getting away with it as well. But at the same time, something needs to happen, because it's getting ridiculous now. No one's going to want to touch him. No one should touch him. And that's what I've got to say, to be honest.
I was going to say, when we talk about performance enhanced drugs, we talk about fighters using them. The one fighter that always springs to mind when you think about the negative impact it has on the other fighter is David Price, because he fought someone, I can't remember the guy's name, but then he got knocked out. It found out after this guy was on steroids. He failed a drugs test. But if you look at that fight pretty much was the start of the downside of his career, because he was never the same after being knocked out. So it's such a brutal sport. And you're 100% right. People do deserve second chances, but the 6-month ban for people being caught first time, that's a joke. Because like I said, I mean, people normally fight, and they don't normally fight, for another 6 months. So they're not really missing out on much.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a shame, because like Mohsen said, he's a great character. All that crumpet and tea stuff with Anthony Joshua, and they're going back and forth. He's got that character, that you want to watch, and you're intrigued to watch. But now I can't ever see him being back in a boxing ring.
But when you look at a situation like this, and I mean, I agree with Montel as well. People deserve a second chance, but there's a limit to second chances. I mean, the sport is brutal enough as it is, and surely someone needs to be made an example of. Now, I personally think he failed 3 drugs tests before the Anthony Joshua fight, and he failed the drugs test in his early days as a kickboxer, I believe, was in 2014. Surely then that should have been the point when people should have thought, the sport of boxing, there's, so many people have lost their lives in the ring. The sport of boxing needs to be like, we need to make an example of drug cheats. That's, I believe, when, last year before the fight with Anthony Joshua, is when he should have been pulled away from the sport altogether. I mean, you look at his career so far, he's 23-0 with 1 draw, with 20 knockouts. He's 32 years old, and he's scheduled to fight on July the 9th. I remember when he originally failed a test before the Anthony Joshua fight, and we all watch Eddie Hearn's interviews with Sky Sports, with IFL TV, with any platform out there. And Eddie Hearn is, he's a happy, loud chap he is, and I've interviewed him as well a few times, but Eddie Hearn, even, you saw a different side to him when he interviewed him. And I think it was the fact that, not only because it's Eddie Hearn giving him a chance, he's brought him on a few of his shows, but it's just, if you look at what he was taking before the Anthony Joshua fight, it could have seriously injured Anthony Joshua. And I think what really, really takes the piss in all of this is that he's been given a second chance. These top-ranked shows that we've seen the first few weeks have really been good. It was a great chance for him to come back and put all that behind him and get back into the mix. But again, he's failed another drugs test. And I don't know which one of you said it, but I think he's done it throughout lockdown, thinking nobody will find out. It's just, I don't know.
But Faisal, sorry to cut you, but who is he up to, though, to give these fighters a lifetime ban? Because there's so many commissions, there's so many different governing bodies. where does it stop? Who's going to say, all right, then he's going to get a ban? Because he might be banned in England, but he might be able to fight in the US. Then he might be banned in the US, but he might be able to fight in England. So it doesn't kind of make sense. There needs to be one kind of entity that decides whether a boxer should be getting banned or not.
I think there's two things you could do right now, because with a lot of fighters, what they do these days, if they can't get licensed in the UK or the US, they go over to somewhere like Lithuania or Luxembourg, just like David Haye and Chisora did before their fight. I think every promoter out there should refuse to work with him, number one. If that doesn't work, no one should accept a fight with him. Because the guy, look, we try to keep it as professional as it is, but the guy's a cheat. He's a non-stop cheat. And I think you have to look. We've seen last year was a bad year in terms of deaths in the ring. You've got to put the other fighters' safety first, And Jarrell Miller, I was excited to see him in that press conference. He brought a different side out to Anthony Joshua, but another failed drugs test. I, for one, think that not only should it be a lifetime ban, but it should be brought on federal charges. A lot of people call for Margarito's head after the whole hand wrap incident with Sugar Shane Mosley. A lot of people said he should have been brought to federal charges. He should have been arrested. What's different to Jarrell Miller? No, I personally just, look at it. I think it's disgraceful. And for boxing,
he's thrown his career away, man.
Yeah,
that's the sad thing about it. I mean, how much money do you think he was getting for that Joshua fight? That's the pinnacle of boxing. He's fighting for all the titles, well, most of the titles. The biggest fight of his career, the biggest fight in boxing that year, the past few years, and he just went and threw it away. So you'd think then you'd learn a lesson. You get a second chance, like Montel's, said, and then on the first hurdle he fails again. So, some people, like you said, I think Montel's 100% right. There's so many different governing bodies. There's always going to be one that's going to give him the chance. But I think promoters now need to take a stance and say, we're not going to touch him.
I think this
was also a good opportunity for him to kind of announce himself back in the heavyweight division. Being out of it. And I know since he had his initial ban for 6 months, he had a fight which he won in the 4th round. I can't remember the opponent, but
is it in 2018?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite recent.
Bogdan Danu was his last fight. And he won.
So I mean, it was a win. He got the TK. It was a knockout performance. So this is it. We've been starved of boxing. If he produces a good performance here, he throws his name into the hat as, he could have set up a lucrative fight with a Luis Ortiz or a Dillian Whyte or a Daniel Dubois. The names would have been. It's a shame that he's let himself down, man. I mean, I'm just gutted, but I agree with all your points. That maybe we might say, what, enough's enough. We can't have any of that. If you're risking someone's life in the ring because you got an unfair advantage, it's not happening.
I mean, I've read somewhere on the Daily Mail that he's expected to be banned for 2 years. What kind of a message is that?
Hold on, Faisal. Has his second sample been tested?
No, it hasn't. But
so we've got to wait for that. I guess.
But I know it's so inevitable though. If he's done it twice,
I agree.
It's so inevitable though. I mean, if it does come back as a negative, then fair enough. But I don't think it does. I mean, to read that like they want to ban him for 2 or 3 years, what's the point? He's only going to come back.
That's what normally happens, though, isn't it? 6 months is the first strike. 2 years is the second strike, and then what happens then? Someone dies in the ring, and then that's another strike. We could talk about it all day, but the bottom line is that, like you said, the guy's a cheat, and he's lost a lot of credibility before all this happened, and now if he had any credibility left, he's just completely gone and flushed that down the toilet.
Montel, what do you think needs to happen now in terms of drugs in not only just in boxing but in sports? How serious do these commissions in terms of WBC, IBF, all these people, what do they need to do? What sort of regulations would you take in terms of going forward with the support of boxing? Because this is something that we're seeing occur on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think going forward, you've got to just bring it to the ultimate kind of like deficit where it's lifetime ban, because even 2 years in boxing is quick, because Anthony Joshua has like 2 fights a year. So 2 years is 4 fights, 3 fights roughly. And then before you know it, he's going to be back again. And it's like, if he comes back again and he gets caught with something else, then what? You know what I mean? So all these governing bodies, all these kind of the councils, they need to shift up a gear and put lifetime bans on anyone that's found with anything in their body.
I was speaking to someone about this the other day, and I said that there's fighters in the world right now that are looking at this and thinking, you know what, I could get away with it. It sets such a bad example to boxing. I personally do think now, because of how serious it's got over the years, I think people that do it once, I think that's where you need to like sort of draw the line and say a 5-year ban, not a lifetime ban, but a 5-year ban, because I don't think this whole 6 month, a year ban. I mean, look, Anthony Joshua sometimes has one fight, he fights 8 months later. I'm not saying Anthony Joshua is a cheat, but that's how careers work in boxing. Fighters fight once a year, twice a year. A 6 month ban is nothing. I think it needs to be a serious, lengthy ban. I think a 5-year ban, and if it's caught a second time, I think that's it. I'm done with it. Career over. But the worst thing about this is I could see someone out there that will want to work with Jarrell Miller, that will give him a chance, and I think that sets such a bad example to the sport of boxing. And if I was a fighter and someone said to me, well, you're a rising heavyweight, here's a fight with Jarrell Miller, and here's all $2-3 million, I'd say no straight away. Because it plays a part in your mind. This guy's cheated with drugs before, God knows what he's on now. It's disappointing. It's so disappointing, because I enjoyed watching him during that build up with the Anthony Joshua fight. And now looking at it, it's such a letdown, because, he's a character, he's undefeated, he's a fighter from New York, he's a half-decent fighter. It's a massive letdown to boxing, and I do really hope it has to be a lifetime ban. It has to be a lifetime ban, but we know how the sport of boxing works. What do you guys see happening?
Yeah, he'll probably get a 2-year ban, and then we'll probably see him in the ring.
It's damaging though, a 2-year ban. Why a 2-year ban? What?
Because that's the norm, isn't it? I mean, 6 months is first strike, and then 2 years is second strike. I can't remember anyone that's been given a lifetime ban. I might be wrong. There might be a few fighters, probably not elite fighters, that we've not heard of.
Just a quick question. I mean, when Dillian Whyte was caught, with using performance-enhancing drugs, how long did he get his ban for?
I'm sure his was 2 years, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I think his one was like an over-the-counter, what's something over the counter and then contained something that was.
Well,
that'd be interesting to see, how the Brits, challenge, take on drugs and sports compared to the US.
I like the fact that Ron mentioned about the second sample, because Dillian Whyte, towards the back end of last year, failed the drugs test, and the second sample come back as negative. But look at Dillian Whyte. He's a smart person. He's clever. He's really at a good place in boxing right now. I don't think Dillian Whyte's that stupid. I think Jarrell Miller's just looked at this whole lockdown situation and thought,
tried to shift the weight as quick as he can, and thought probably by the time he's back fighting and testing, he'll be out of his system. But unfortunately, it's not. So it's a shame.
Asi thinks a lifetime ban. A 2-year ban. I think he'll get a 2-year ban. Ron, what do you see happening with Jarrell Miller?
I think he'll get a 2-year ban, because these boxing boards, they tend to stick to the rules and the regulations. So he'll probably get a 2-year ban, which I don't think is right, but yeah.
I possibly could think it's longer, because it's not that long ago that he had, been banned in the first place. It was only 6 months, 2017, was it, when he was supposed to fight AJ? Was it 2017? 2019, I suppose. That was well off. Yeah, I mean, that's a very short period of time that he's recommitted an offence. It's not like, it's like a 10-year, 5-year gap. So, I think it might be a lot more severe than that, maybe 5 years plus. But that's just me using a bit of, my own opinion, really.
The worrying thing is that these young fighters, these young up-and-coming heavyweights especially, I've met a lot of these young heavyweights, such as David Adeleye and Daniel Dubois, and I've spoken to them. They're really nice people. They seem to be going in the right direction. It just sends like a bad message to them as well, because like these fighters, they look up to that, the elder generation in the heavyweight boxing right now, and I just think that it gives boxing such a bad name to do it once, and then especially when you look at what he was caught with and failed 3 drugs tests, and then to do it a second time. There's people out there that are going to look at this. I wouldn't be surprised if you get fighters thinking, you know what, this isn't the right career for me. God knows.
No, but you make good point, but they're not stupid enough. That's the thing. In this country, you've got a perfect role model, whether he's fake or whether it's the real. I mean, Anthony Joshua, he defines what it should be to be a boxer, a heavyweight boxer. Not taking shortcuts on that. Love him or like him, think he's fake or not, he sets the bar. He shows how it can be done with hard work and everything. So, you know what is sad about him, but he's one of a of a few. He's one of a many that's being caught. So if these fighters do look up to fighters like him, then that's not a good sign. They've got good role models to look at, and they should just people like him just excuse him now and forget all about him.
I think in a way, when you look at this, I think boxing itself, its answer to this whole drug scandal thing has been poor. I mean, I'm not going to mention names, but one fighter failed a drugs test, got a 6-month ban, but he was fighting 5 months later. I think boxing, I credit football, because you look at people that failed drug tests before. What was it, 9 months ban, a year ban? Rio Ferdinand missed.
Well, that's even for missing a drugs test.
Rio Ferdinand, exactly. I think.
You know what I mean?
I think
that
boxing
was considered just as bad as taking drugs. So
I think boxing itself, it has to now become a bit harsh in examples like this. Montel, can you see the sport of boxing now perhaps sort of stepping up in terms of drug cheats and handing out lengthy bans?
Well, I'd like to think so. I think everyone has to come forward. The promoters, kind of like the leaders of the governing bodies, they kind of need to come out and really set a precedent and say, this cannot continue, because it will just keep happening. It will just keep happening, and fighters will keep getting away with it. And as I said earlier, it's going to take for someone to die for real action to kind of, happen. And that's bad, isn't it? So.
Well, let's just hope boxing can. It's got to start handing out punishments such as lifetime bans, because I just really, really think it's Jarrell Miller's let himself down massively, and I don't see him coming back from this. So anyway, let's move on. Matchroom Fight Camp is now in place. Eddie Hearn announced it the other day. Week 1 begins on Saturday, the 1st of August. Some really, really good fights in there. Before, obviously, we talk about some of the fights and some of the young talent that we'll be seeing. Your guys' initial thoughts on Fight Camp? I personally, fair play to Eddie Hearn. When a lot of people laughed it off. I remember when he released that sort of preview video on his Twitter, he got a lot of stick for it. Oh, fights in your back garden. It's just another way of you saying that you've got money, you're a show off. But he's pulled it off. He's got some good fights on there. What do you think this means for boxing?
Yeah, I think we've just been starved of it. So anything we get, we'll make the most of it. He's probably saving himself a lot of money rather than paying for a venue where there's no fans coming in. So it makes sense. He doesn't have to pay for the venue. Obviously, it's in his back garden. And he's got some really top fights, 50-50 fights coming up as well. Fight week 1 in particular, looked at on the undercard. We've got the main event, Sam Eggington versus Cheeseman. That can go either way. But the one I'm really looking forward to is Fabio Wardley.
Against Sam Validity.
He's Dillian Whyte's protege, and and he seems to be coming on. He's at the early stages of his career, but he could be another one that breaks through. This could be a defining fight for him and set him up nicely, for a European, kind of further down the line, or something a bit more than that. And you got Jordan Gill as well on that against Reece Bellotti.
Another good fight, really good fight. I like Reece Bellotti.
He's been hyped up a lot, Jordan Gill. Unfortunately, he lost his last fight. I think it was injuries or he wasn't feeling right, but that this could be, and he's up against a really good Reece Belotti. So,
I think,
I think
when we originally mentioned like fight camps and fights behind closed doors, we did kind of say that these fights could be 50-50 fights because of the current situation. I mean, what have you guys made of the top rank shows so far? Do you see these 4-week fight week camps, as Eddie Hearn likes to call them? Do you think they could live up to expectation and perhaps do one better than these top rank shows that we're seeing?
I think, like Ron says, isn't it? We've been starved of boxing, especially in the UK. So it'd be good to put on, Sky Sports or BT Sports, whatever it is, and see some live boxing for once. Like I said, in the other podcast, the US shows have been really good. I've preferred it that way. It feels more intense. It feels like you're there. You can hear the punches and that. And the fight cards that they've announced, they looks like there's some really cracking fights, especially the Dillian Whyte one. I'm a massive fan of his, and I just want to see him in the ring. So that's something to look forward to. But yeah, it's live boxing. It's boxing back in the UK, and that's what we've been craving for.
Because of obviously the situation over the last 3 or 4 months, I mean, I asked it to you guys in a previous podcast. I have to ask it again because we've got boxing back. The go-ahead's been given, yes, behind closed doors. Should these events be pay-per-view?
I don't think it should be pay-per-view. I feel that would be like a bit like an injustice to put them at pay-per-view. I feel like everyone's boxing fans here. I think we know what the pay-per-view fights are. I wouldn't really say Povetkin Whyte is a pay-per-view. Well, it is, but I think with what's gone on in regards to the virus and whatnot, I feel like you've got to just do us a bit of a favor, Eddie. And so,
Once, a quick question.
Go on.
I mean, if it's not pay-per-view, how do you pay these fighters? I mean, Dillian Whyte and Povetkin, I mean, they're not fighting for peanuts.
True.
I mean, I see your point. I'm just playing a bit of devil's advocate here.
Yeah, but is that down to us? That's what I throw back at you, Ron. Is that our responsibility that we should be funding these fighters? Everyone's taken a hit over these last few months. I mean, I know you can't. I know you can't compare.
I love how different Asif has been since Liverpool winning the league. He's just such a different person, man.
What I was going to say is, I know you can't compare the sports here, football and boxing, because football, they're on set contracts and that, but look what they do, in terms of giving back to the fans. We've missed out on football, so they'll put it on free on BBC and everything. And I know obviously boxing can't do that, but listen, if a promoter has that much money to put on a bloody fight camp in his garden, I'm pretty sure he's got money somewhere to give to these fighters. Not down to us. And I guarantee you as well, these prices are going to be, I don't think they'll be the normal prices. I think they'll be like 24, 25 pounds for these.
The difference between a boxer and a footballer, let's be honest, is footballers got a contract. They're getting paid throughout the year. Boxers, you only get paid when you fight. And, they're putting their lives on risk. They're going to get punched in the face, taking damage. So it better be worth it. So that's the way they're thinking. If you're a Dillian Whyte, you're commanding possibly 6 figures, for a fight.
Sam Jones.
Are you gonna give that up?
Sam Jones, Joe Joyce's manager, turned around and said a few weeks ago, he said something along the lines of, I'm a promoter. How could I take a huge lump of sum and ask my fight to be left with virtually nothing at the end of the fight? He's the one that's putting his body through hell during during training camp. He's the one that has to deal with media week. He's the one that has to get in the ring, and he's the one that has to put his life on the line. And I think, good managers are what these fighters need, especially at a time like this right now. Because I mean, personally, I don't think the first 3 shows would be pay-per-view, because there's no disrespect to the fighters. I don't think there's a pay-per-view worthy fight. These are all young and up-and-coming fights. I mean, I know you got Harper versus Jonas for the unified super featherweight women's title, and that's obviously probably will get pay-per-view worthy. But I don't know. I don't think none of these cards should be pay-per-view because of obviously the current situation. And as Asim mentioned, football's really stepped up with its return in terms of making some of these matches that we've seen for free. Some games have been put on BBC. But again, it's obviously everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. When you look at these shows, you have to think. I mean, we've got our opinion, but the public sometimes, and watching boxing over the last few years, studying the sport as well. I remember when Joseph Parker fought Dillian Whyte, and I'd done an interview with Frank Warren, and Frank Warren turned around and said that fight is nowhere near pay-per-view worthy. The fight itself turned out to be probably one of the fights of the year in 2018, and there was a lot of commotion. Dillian Whyte's not fought for a world title. Who did Joseph Parker beat for a world title? Who else has he fought apart from Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz? The Whyte-Povetkin fight, let's just focus a bit on that card. Should that, because of the caliber of the fight, and let's remember Dillian Whyte is on the verge of getting a world title shot. Povetkin, former world champion, for Klitschko, for Anthony Joshua, a great fight. I've always liked Povetkin. Should that card specifically be pay-per-view worthy?
I think when Ron's obviously mentioned that to me, it's made me think, all right, it is a pay-per-view worthy fight. But I'm looking at the card and you got like Bacoli versus Kuzmin. You've got obviously Katie Taylor. Is she fighting that Serrano? Or is that been?
I'm not too sure about that, but you got Clay versus Congo, which is another good fight. They've had a bit of.
I think still you'd probably need about 2 more domestic fights with fighters that are more well known, if that makes sense. I feel like the likes of Congo, Bacoli, they're not really that known to the general public. So when you're talking about pay-per-view and people are paying for this actual fight, this card, and they're seeing like the likes of Bacoli and Congo and who are good fighters, but they're not known. And I feel like the pay-per-view kind of like the whole spectrum of it is to pay to see fighters that you are aware of, if that makes sense.
Week 4, go on, Asif.
I was going to say the other thing is it's 5 fights, right?
On the Dillian Whyte card, it's 4 fights.
4 fights.
So you could potentially have, I know it's not going to happen, but you can have 4 fights that end in the first round. And you're paying,
the thing, isn't it?
You're paying like whatever, £20-25 for, for maybe like 10 minutes worth of boxing.
I look at card week number 4. I do really believe Lawrence Okoli should have featured on that card. And I do think, I'm not a boxing promoter, but it feels up to me, I would, just to really, really spice that card up.
When is that fight happening? Okoli versus, is it Glowacki?
No, I'm not too sure about that because his next fight has not been announced. But just to spice up that
would have
card,
been, if that was on that Whyte Povetkin, I agree with Mont that it gives it a little bit more of a oomph.
One fight I would have made for week 4, the Whyte Povetkin card, Joshua Buatsi versus Callum Johnson. That's a fight the British public have wanted for a very long time. I've done an interview with Callum Johnson during lockdown. It's a fight he wants. Joshua Buatsi, speaking to him last year, he's more or less said anyone in the light heavyweight domestic level, I will have to fight if I want to get to a world title. That is a fight I really would have put on there. And I'm quite kind of surprised that Dillian Whyte's card has only got 4 fights on it. And as Montel mentioned,
another fight I'll throw in there, Faisal, Conor Benn. I'm surprised he's nowhere.
I mean, if you're following the career of Conor Benn, he's holding out for the Josh Kelly fight. Josh Kelly's scheduled to fight David Avediesen for the European welterweight title. No scheduled date on that. But look, week 3, you got Zelfa Barrett on there, Shannon Courtney, Andy Fowler, week 2, week 1, as you mentioned, Egerton versus Cheeseman. There's some good fights on there. Asif, when you look at the 4 cards, impressed with it, looking forward to seeing the local talent?
Yeah, it's British boxing back, and that's what we've been craving. It's great watching the American shows, but we want to see our own fighters now. We want to see some domestic fights, and there's some cracking fights on there. But like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing Dillian Whyte back on our screens. It'd be interesting to see how the press conferences and that work.
Especially with that whole. I don't know.
How have they worked in America? Have they been doing press conferences?
No. They've not been doing press conferences. They've been doing weigh-ins, but obviously they've been having the 2-meter social distancing, whatever it is, a lot of crap. But there will obviously be press conferences and stuff like that. I come up with an idea the other day. I don't know if you guys agree. The undercard of Dillian Whyte's, make it free. The Whyte Povetkin fight, make it pay for it. Make it pay-per-view. That's what I personally would do. Because you got to look at Dillian Whyte. He's a household name. Povetkin's a former world champion. I do see Dillian Whyte getting a world title one day. That's what I would have done. What do you guys think?
But let me just throw something out there, yeah, before everyone, and I'll throw this out to Ron and Montel, yeah. Does he have to fight? He did. I mean, we're talking like, Dillian Whyte, has to fight. These fighters, that they're being forced to fight. They don't have to fight. They're choosing to fight. So, yeah, I know what you're saying. It should, that potentially that fight, should just be a pay-per-view fight itself. But we're all family men here. We all pay bills. I pay a bill when it's called Sky Sports. I should be included in my Sky Sports package, if I'm being honest, rather than paying another £20 to watch Dillian Whyte versus, Povetkin.
Or you could just go out there and buy a dodgy box.
I don't want one of Ron's dodgy boxes, man.
No. I mean,
I know a guy. Come on, man.
Ron and Montel, you guys have got to answer back to As's question.
Half of me says, you know what, I agree with Asif, but then another part thinks like, wow, these are two world level fighters, and I think for the kind of like the credibility and obviously the work rate of Eddie Hearn, he probably wants to kind of like stand out a bit more in comparison to Top Rank, because I think with the Top Rank shows, I think the fights have been really good, but I think it's just the promotion round of it's been lacking. So I think he mentioned on his last interview, Eddie Hearn, he said about the ratings or something like that, or the viewers on the shows have been like terrible, which is kind of understandable, obviously because of the timings and whatnot, but at the same time, I feel like kind of like doing these 50-50 matchups, like week after week, kind of just builds it nicely, and obviously that whole kind of like different vibe within the back garden, I feel like it's going to make it a spectacle. So.
Ron, before you answer, I'm going to answer Asif's question, even though it wasn't related to me. Dillian Whyte doesn't have to fight, but this is why Dillian Whyte deserves so much credit, because he could sit on his arse and wait for that world title shot to come to him. But you have to respect the fact that this is a number one mandatory challenger for the WBC that is fighting in 50-50 fights.
I respect all that, yeah, and I know what you're going to say, yeah, he takes risks and everything, but we're talking about pay-per-view money, yeah. So why does it have to be pay-per-view? If he's, if you're saying, he takes all these risks and he's eager to fight and he's proving points and all that, I understand that, yeah. So why can't he fight on a normal Sky Sports show? It's 4 fights. It's a 4-fight show. Say if they push it to 5, yeah. Would you pay £25 to watch that card that could potentially last, let's say, 10 minutes worth of boxing?
I agree with you, Asif. I agree with you now. Actually.
If he's so eager to fight, yeah, and he wants to get out there, then listen, I'm under no, I don't think 100% it's him that's going to be saying, oh, I want pay-per-view. But I think now, yeah, promoters should be stepping up.
Why
like
not, Asif? Why is he not going to say I want pay-per-view? He gets more money. He gets paid more.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking more in terms of finances. This is it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, Rondo, is he wants money, right? He's not really too fussed where it comes from.
Well, that's the point. That's the reason why he turned down the AJ fight for the. We say that he's been hard done by, but he was offered, but the money wasn't right for that fight.
But times have changed. Look at the times we're in now. Yeah, they're not going to get them anywhere close to the money that they would have got 6 months ago, a year ago. Okay. Fesser's first point was Eddie Hearn saving a lot of money. He's throwing the fight in his back garden. So why not some of that money that he saved? Why not throw it at his fighters rather than probably putting in his bank account? Why not give it to the fighters? Why does it have to be on us as paying customers to pay for these fighters? That's my point about it.
And another thing as well. How much of a cut is he gonna get if it was like in a like arena, for example? So he'd probably get like just over $1 million or something like that, or like normally if it was like a pay-per-view and like it was in the O2 or something like that. So how much is he gonna lose now, if that makes sense? If it was a pay-per-view, he's probably still gonna get like 300-400K. You know what I mean? He's like one of the biggest fighters in the stable. So
I mean, my friend goes to me. He's probably gonna have a bubble bath or a jacuzzi whilst watching the fights. It's practically because it's in his back garden. You know, you all make good points, but at the end of the day, I mean, fighters need paying, and I've got to agree with Asif. I mean, I don't think the public should be responsible for paying these fighters. I mean, you know, for a four card fight, might get put to 5 or 6, which, as you said, could potentially last 10 to 15 minutes.
But let's put it this way. I mean,
with what's going on though, is it right to ask the boxing fans, can you pay £20, £30?
Well, look, I mean, we're paying £20, £30 for subscription to Sky Sport to watch Premier League games. I mean, not all the games are free to air.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, Ron. So it's
cool. I mean, we would still have been paying that subscription.
Yeah, but Ron, you're paying that.
The league hasn't been in place.
You're paying that on a monthly basis, and you're getting to watch not just one game. You get to watch.
I'm just using another example here.
And you also got to watch Liverpool win the league as well.
And the main thing is, it's called Sky Sports. It's not called Sky Premier League. It's called Sky Sports. So that should cover all sports. But that's another topic.
I mean, obviously.
But let me ask you a question, yeah? Sorry, first, I don't mean to take over all the questions.
No.
Why ain't Anthony Joshua fine? Is someone give me a reason why he's not fine?
Yeah, he's injured.
Didn't you see him in a Black Lives Matter with a brace on?
Let's talk about another prize fighter. Give me another prize fighter. You said Lawrence Okoli. Why is Lawrence Okoli not fine?
Joshua Buatsi was fine.
Why are these not fine? Because if them two run the card, I'd be like, okay, that's a pay-per-view card.
This is why I said that the card number 4 should have had Lawrence Okoli, and I personally, as a promoter, I would have sat down with Callum Johnson, Josh Buatsi, and say, listen, God knows what can happen in the next 6 months. We need to make this fight now because number 1, it's going to be pay-per-view worthy. Number 2, you guys need to start fighting again. That's what I personally
yeah. Boys, it's simple. Look, we're all consumers, man. You know, we know the backstory with Dillian Whyte. You know, we know the trials and tribulations that he's had, the fights he's had. We want to know the next chapter of his story. You know, he's up against an A-level fighter in Povetkin, who, gave a good shot to. Yeah, I mean, so we don't want to know answers. Now, if we want to watch that live, we'll pay it. That's it. It's simple as. It's a business. I think they're within their right to ask the public to pay for it. It's not a pool kind of two boxes that they put together.
I personally don't. I don't agree with them asking for fans to pay for a 4-fight card, whereas as I said, could last 10 minutes, especially with what's going on. It can. But
that's it. That's what we tune in to pay for.
I'm not no disrespect to the fighters that are on the undercard. I think when you do a pay-per-view bill, you've got to have at least 3 fights that stand out. Prime example, worthy of its money, was the Josh Taylor Regis Prograve night. That fight was pay-per-view worthy because you had Lawrence Okoli challenging for the European title. You had David Price and Derek Chisora in that fight. You had Lee Selby. That's pay-per-view worthy. When you do a pay-per-view card, you have to have a good undercard to go with it. You can't just... a lot of people slandered... Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, the second fight, because who was on the undercard? Charles Martin. The people on Twitter were like, I'm paying, £20 for Charles Martin. But again, we could debate. Listen, don't obviously want to debate the whole podcast.
I mean, sometimes you get, you get your money's worth, and then there's other times where you pay over the odds. I mean, like the Mayweather-McGregor. I mean, as a boxing kind of
Mayweather-McGregor stands out, though. You've got the face of UFC
in terms of boxing, kind of... I mean, that wasn't worth it in terms of a boxing show. I mean, a boxing masterclass. We watched it more for the spectacle.
Mayweather exactly took the words right in my mouth. A spectacle. But let's not debate on this all day long because I can see Squeeze getting smashed any minute now. As to start with you, Whyte versus Povetkin. I think it's Whyte's toughest fight of his career. What do you think?
What's Povetkin got left? His last fight was it?
Michael Hunter.
Draw? Was it a draw? Was it?
Against Michael Hunter.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. I can see Dillian Whyte knocking him out, if I'm being honest. Late rounds. Povetkin's 40 odd now. He's a great operator. He's a technical fighter, but eventually Dillian Whyte will catch him, and I can see a late rounds stoppage.
Why I think it's his toughest fight, because I think if you look outside the top 3, which are obviously Fury, AJ, Wilder, I think he's got the best experience. Former world champion, I watch a lot of Teddy Atlas, and Teddy Atlas, sums him up as a very good fighter. And again, he's a former world champion. He's fought some great names. I thought his performance against Andy Joshua before he got knocked out was spot on. And I thought his performance against Michael Hunter was decent as well. And I do think that experience will play its part in the fight.
I disagree. I think he'll bring it, Povetkin, but as you said, I don't think he's got much left because, all right then, if he was still the fighter that you guys say he is, or the caliber, he rolls through Michael Hunter, which takes no disrespect to Michael Hunter at all, but he rolls through him. And I think youth is on Whyte's side. I think he's probably the hungrier fighter with obviously what he's going through, and I think he's got enough power to knock him out. So I'm going to go for Whyte win in rounds 10 to 12.
I'm not knocking Dillian Whyte, but when he's fought someone with experience, even though he's come through most times, he's had a tough night. The 2 fights against Chisora were tough fights. The fights against Jose Parker was a tough fight. Oscar Rivas had the similar number of fights with him and put him down and just about lost to the points decision. So I do think that I agree with you guys, his age, but for me, age is just a number, especially in this sport. And I do think the experience of Povetkin could give him the upper hand. Ron Montel disagrees with my comments. Asif, what do you think of this fight? And where do you see it going?
I mean, Povetkin is a tough son of a bitch, man. I've got to say it like it is. Prior to, he's lost against Klitschko earlier, for the, lost against AJ, he's fought against Price, had that battling draw against Michael Hunter. I agreed that Mont made a really good point there in regards to if he is good as we thought, then he would have just gone through him.
Asif said, Asif goes, why does he have to fight again? I remember before his fight with Oscar Rivas, the press conference, Eddie Hearn wasn't there that day. His dad Barry took the press conference, and his words were, so Dillian Whyte, number 1 mandatory for the WBC, could sit here and do nothing until he gets that fight. What does he do? Son of a bitch takes another tough fight. And this is why out of all of them, I got a lot of respect for Dillian Whyte. I think it's going to go to
Dillian. I think
he's massively improved. He's improved.
He's massively improved. I reckon Whyte wins it on points. I don't think it's going to be a knockout. Whyte will win on points, and I think age is on his side. Povetkin is at the wrong end of his career, but take nothing away from him. It's going to be a hard fight. It's going to be a tough fight.
I'm going to go for a draw. I think it's going to be a draw. I think it's going to be a draw. I think I'm going to go for a draw. Before
Will it be an exciting draw or a ball draw?
Be very exciting. This isn't going to be just a boring fight. This is going to be two.
For £25, it better be an exciting draw. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Otherwise, screens are getting smashed.
But before we end the podcast, Whyte Fury, war of words. These last few days on Twitter. This is building up to be something really, really good. All depending on this result. What do you guys make of the war of words between Whyte and Fury? Because once upon a time, these two guys sparred with each other. They were kind of friends. And now, if you see what they've been saying to each other on Twitter, it's not been nice, but it's been enjoyable to read and to participate in. Guys, what do you think?
Bring it on. I mean, if I had that fight happened instead of the AJ fight, I wouldn't lose sleep over it. It'd be an exciting watch.
I think this is the best press conference that boxing has to offer right now.
Oh, that would be amazing. I think you got 2 massive personalities that don't give a damn, and I think to be fair to kind of like both of them, obviously, we know they'll fight anyone, anywhere. They're those type of fighters. I think it's just good for boxing. I think obviously with what's going on now, this is what we need. We need to see all these heavyweights mingling, arguing, debating. We need to see all the fights, man. So yeah, bring it up.
I said what
I love about both of them as well, they don't let other boxers put it on them.
Yeah.
That's why I think the build-up's going to be great for that.
I said we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but is this war of words between the two of them? Is this their way of saying February 2021 is happening?
Yeah, possibly. I don't think they really need to sell the fight, if I'm being honest. I don't think they need. I mean, the fight sells itself, and it's annoying for me because they're both my favorite fighters. Heavyweight wise, them two. So it'd be tough to pick a winner. And Dillian Whyte, the can man. Anyone can get it. And Tyson Fury is just, he's like they said, like the boys said, they don't back down, do they? They'll give it as much as they can. So it's another debate, isn't it, about if they'll ever eventually will fight, because obviously Wilder and AJ and everything. But yeah, we see what happens.
Can just see Mark Tim sat there right now. All right, Shan, got one more fight, and then it's your Fury. Now with Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte does the impression better than I do. Come on, Shan, you got to get your gloves up now. You got to go out there and knock him out. It's an interesting time. I'm looking forward to waking up tomorrow and going on my Twitter and see what they've got to say about each other.
Now I paid £25 for that.
Yeah, I paid £40 for that.
Oh, well.
I
That
pay
card
nothing.
on its own, just them 2 fights.
I ain't paying nothing because I got a dodgy box. God help me if a police officer watches this when it gets released tomorrow. But yeah, that's all we've got time for podcast number 14. Remember, guys, help Ron out with his fundraiser, and don't forget to give Talking Tactics a follow. We'll be putting the link in the description. Yes, Liverpool are Premier League champions, and I'm also going to be appearing on live TV on Wednesday night to rub it in Manchester United's faces even more. So, Asif, thank you for your time. Pleasure as always. Mons as well. Same to you. Hope it all goes well with Talking Tactics. Ron, I'll be sure to come to the top of Dunstable Road tomorrow for when you had your heart attack whilst doing this fundraiser. No, I'm only joking.
Well done, Ron.
Well done to you, man. Well done to you.
Brother.
But just to let you know, it doesn't count when you're sat in a taxi doing all your kilometers at the same time,
I did see you in a taxi yesterday, Ron. Holding your
You mean
phone
what,
out
fake
the air.
taxi or the actual?
You one tough son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch takes another tough fight. Yeah, guys, before we leave, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you give all these guys a follow on Instagram. Don't forget to check out the fundraiser Ron's doing, Talking Tactics. Give them a follow. And thank you for listening to podcast 14 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast.